Your Grace, Dame Fanny, ladies and gentlemen, Jumbo. Fanny wanted to just end her little contribution tonight by doing something quite funny. I hope I can help her bring it off. You know, ladies and gentlemen, that, come on, you've got to come here, because they won't understand. Got to do it very loud, remember?
Yeah.
But not until I say when. It's a lovely part of so many performances of choral masterpieces that are often by Handel, ladies and gentlemen. And Handel, as you will probably remember, has an incredible ability to build up the music and build up the sounds of the voices and the instruments, and then suddenly cut off. There's a big silence, and then we have the final cadence. And you know the sort of thing I mean. For instance, the end of Messiah, and they go, Amen, Amen, and it builds up, and the trumpets get warmed up, and the whole thing builds up, and everybody's screaming, and there's always somebody in the audience who's not really concentrating, and the conductor builds up the noise, and he suddenly cuts everything off, and all you hear is,
I know what you like, but I like mine fried with onions.
over to you. Ladies and gentlemen, it falls to me to try and draw this exceptional evening to a close, to find a cadence. And of course, Fanny has done a remarkable job. Are you going to do a walkabout now, Fanny, or what? It's been a wonderful occasion. Just before dinner started, her left shoe came off, and I was down underneath the table trying to find it and put it on again. You never know as a conductor what awaits you, you really don't. She once wrote me a letter, after one of these lovely events to draw you all together that I couldn't come to, and she said, "My dearest Mark, it was just wonderful. It was so sad you weren't there. It went off terribly well, and what you do with the orchestra is so exciting, and we're all very thrilled that you come, and we're looking forward to the next competition, and there's a great feeling of optimism about it." And then she said, "And it was a rather nice evening for me too. I won the raffle." Sometimes I think, ladies and gentlemen, I'm the only one who's really allowed to be naughty and cheeky with her. It seems to me crucial that somebody continues that task. And anything that I would say to you, Fanny, are you listening? I would do it with love and respect. Because what you have given this city, nobody else could have done. And I think what's important is to remember what it must have felt like 50 years ago, when none of this was there, and it had to be dreamt, and it had to be constructed. And the idea before the money, the idea had to be sown. And that must have taken such incredible determination on Fanny and Marion's part. And we shouldn't take that for granted, even though 50 years ago is a long while. But the fact that it got off the ground, and it gave a focus to this great city at a time probably when it really needed it, and that it brought something that nobody else was doing, is really an example of single-mindedness that is very special and very rare. And you know perfectly well, Fanny, you're a pain in the arse to work for. And that many, many people adore you, and many people support you and work for you with gritted teeth. But that's because you lead us all on. You force us to go above what we thought would be all right. You say, no, that wasn't good enough. Next time, it's got to be better. And as we all know, in any enterprise, there's no going along on the flat. There's either going down or going up. And it takes somebody of your personal energy. I mean, you said to me about 35 minutes ago that you were incredibly tired. You showed no sign of being tired at all. Your energy and determination to make this dream of yours stay a reality is very remarkable and very special. And the future, of course, nobody knows, but the future needs to be thought about in the right way. The future needs to be dreamt about, just as Fanny dreamt about the whole thing 50 years ago. And I think we all have a role to play. We all have to examine to what extent we want it to go on and what role we think it should play for the next 50 years. But what is clear to me is that her invitation to invite me and my wonderful orchestra to come across the mountains was yet another very personal and, you could say, controversial decision to make. There are wonderful orchestras in this country. Wonderful orchestras, especially not in London. There are wonderful orchestras in London, but many of the orchestras that are not in London are of very fine quality. And there could have been many orchestras that you could have invited. And you invited us, and we are all very moved and very grateful. And I just want to say a word about this because I am aware that there's a marvelous orchestra that I did once conduct here in this city. I love accompanying. Many conductors don't. I don't know whether you all know this, but soloists, when I work with them and meet them, tell terrifying stories about how conductors don't rehearse the concertos, as if they don't have any responsibility for the beauty of the performance of a concerto, and how the soloist is supposed to carry it all, and we'll all do our best to keep up with him on the night. Well, to me, it's never been like that. And I think that comes from the fact that when I was very young and very green and minimal, I worked in the theatre, and I watched singers, and I watched conductors working with singers. And that's something that I've done ever since, and I think that it's a very, very great way to train as a conductor. So the idea of accompanying a pianist is an extension of all that. And some of the greatest pieces of music ever written were written for the piano and the orchestra. And the opportunity to work with these young finalists, some of whom, shall I say many of whom, have scarcely ever played with an orchestra before. I mean, that's quite something to take on board, because they are in a completely different situation. They don't know quite how to cope. Some of them, of course, are more practiced. But that is a challenge. And I wonder whether you all know that last competition, Fanny and I agreed to do something a little different, that it seemed to me would be very, very useful for the quality and the result of the competition. For the first time, all the finalists came over the mountains to Manchester to work with us before we came to Leeds. Until last time, Fanny's absolutely unbreakable rule, as all her rules are, were that everybody should have 55 minutes on the afternoon of their final, and that was all they would get. And if they chose a long concerto, that was their choice. If they chose a shorter one, they would get more rehearsal time. I feel that that's extremely stressful for me, the orchestra, and the finalists. And so they all came over, and we worked together in Manchester, and then we met again in the town hall. And I think that that was a very, very good thing, and I hope that next year we will do the same thing. It relaxes, takes the pressure off these young musicians in an amazingly important moment in their lives. So, the future. I would like to voice two things, bit daring, but I would like to hope, on your behalf, that as the years go by, we see more English pianists in the finals. There must be something that must be addressed in order to achieve this, and it's particularly not my area. Fanny would say we need better and more teachers in this country, and perhaps that is true, I wouldn't know. But I find this in my work as a conductor too, that young conductors are rarely English, the ones that get the opportunities and win the competitions and get the jobs. There are good musicians in this country, many good musicians, but they don't win through. And I feel at the moment that the pianists are in the same situation. And the other thing I would like to voice, and perhaps on behalf of some of you, is the idea that one day, I hope this city has a concert hall worthy of this piano competition's aspiration. I know that not everybody would necessarily support that dream, but there are so many other cities that I go to that have made this move from the 19th century general meeting space, the town hall, into a purpose-built hall. And I think that it's important that all of you here tonight understand that the town hall has many qualities. And it's a wonderful building of its time. But making detailed music in a variety of different styles with very little rehearsal is incredibly difficult, technically, for the players, for the soloists, for the conductor. You remember that the orchestra goes higher and higher and higher. You know that one of the oldest Halle stories was at one of these town halls. I don't think it was Leeds. The timpanist was right at the top. And you know the way hot air rises. And as the evening went on, he fell asleep in the concert. And nobody could attract his attention. And in the end, apparently the story goes, they had to send up a percussionist to wake him up. Now, it's a very difficult thing making music in these town halls. And I think that this great city deserves a proper concert hall for all sorts of reasons. But wouldn't it be a wonderful thing if it could happen that it would be opened with a Leeds piano competition to prove the value of it, to bring the community together. And I think that that would be a dream worth dreaming. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that tonight we've celebrated an incredible achievement, and you're all part of it. And on behalf of my orchestra, thank you all for the welcome you give us, and we play our part in the last nights. But to Fanny, on your behalf, we should say an incredible thank you, much courage for whatever lies ahead, and with the thought that perhaps more than anything else what she has done is make us listen better. Thank you all.
Ladies and gentlemen, Telsa very kindly gave me a running order and timings. For reasons which remain obscure, we are just an hour and 5 minutes beyond what she suggested. But could I just say 2 or 3 things? First of all, on the table in front of me are 2 presents for Dame Fanny to present to our soloists tonight and to Sir Mark, and I shall bring them round in a minute. But Mark, thank you very much for those wonderful, kind and fascinating words. And can I offer a few words of thanks, inevitably to Dame Fanny, but also to the other founders and the trustees and the administrative staff and the immensely generous donors over the years who kept this competition going. With regard to tonight, we ought to thank the university for this marvellous place to have our celebration here. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for coming. Thank you for your support in the past, dare I say in the future, and have a safe journey home. Good night, one and all.